Dagas. It's always good to look in the opposite direction if you think something is bad. What part of it's good? Like, for example, a lot of people get hung up on relationships, especially when they end. Like, oh, this is terrible, but it ended, so more or less, you don't have that problem now. In fact, you could get into a new relationship. It could be 100 times better. Now, see, I don't want to give you that martyr mind because a lot of stupid, foolish people keep doing that and keep getting disappointed because they go into relationships with too high of expectations. Look, other people are not out there to complete you. Did somebody tell you that? Does our stupefied culture somehow convey that message to a bunch of dumb people? Or is that just the naive baseline that people have? It's ridiculous and pathetic to think that. Why should someone have to deal with someone else that needs them to complete them? And then in a covert narcissist kind of way, try to manipulate people into being exactly that version of them that they fell in love with. Isn't that pretty sick and demented? And pretty doomed to failure. And yet, how many people are doing that right now? It's probably billions of people. Easy. So what is horrible? Ignorance is horrible. What is great? The light of knowledge. Look at that. We just lit a candle in this dark cave called purgatory. As far as that's concerned, dagas. Good, bad, who knows? Maybe, maybe not. Like saying that one a lot to myself. Maybe, maybe not. Like if I take a hard position on something, my ego takes a hard position, ratchets it up with a little bit, put some extras on top, put some chili, some horseradish on it. Then I say, look, maybe, maybe not. See? That's sort of the hysterical child. I think the hysterical trolling child sort of makes things worse than they need to be. So you have to play the adult to yourself. Come up with some of these crazy kinds of ways of thinking and why things are 10 times worse than they are, or maybe aren't even bad. It's just, this is not possible in this time. Let's get ourselves back into the Tartus, right? We're 1324. Here we step outside. Is it a better world? Looks a little strange around here. Hey, why are there no lights on at night? What? They didn't invent the light bulb yet? Oh no. And yet they were probably living better lives because of that. You see, sometimes we end up doing things that end up biting us in the butt. Like now we can take care of all of these things that used to comprise them or add some meaningfulness to our lives, even if they were somewhat arduous. And what do we go do? Well, now we need meaning, other kinds of meaning, more specialized flavors of meaning, more amounts of meaning, because those things aren't meaningful anymore because they've been eliminated, more or less. Now, okay, a lot of it's drudgery, but what can we do once we've got rid of that drudgery? Well, that's where the practice comes in and picks up the slack. And part of the practice is talking back and taking the opposite of what you would normally take. When something feels bad, look you know instantly that there's a good side to it. So shift your focus to that. Now, that does not mean suppressing whatever emotional pain that you're going through, because that's transformational energy. That's dark energy. Of course, you're going to burn that off. You're not going to repress that. Did it hurt? Let it hurt. We do not get through purgatory perfectly safe and sound. In fact, here's spoiler, we all die. Some sooner than others. You're planning your vacation, you could be dead in the next 5 minutes. Easy. Everybody think it does. It's not gonna happen till it does. And then rockabye baby, lights out forever if you're an atheist. Right? That's the end of the delusion, the end of the ride. You got off the bus and you didn't even realize it. That's why there's so many hungry ghosts out there roaming around. People just don't even know they're dead. Nobody told them. And then look how unskillful people are. They have no idea. They have no ideas about anything. They have dulled their sensitivities to get through all of these other machinations that the modern world has thrown into people's faces. We got rid of that, but now we got this kind of thing. Running around like crazy. What is the problem with greed? Well, to get more, you got to take more, you got to make more, and you can already see where that's going, but that can be a social delusion. That can be a global delusion. These global delusions can multiply themselves. The more people think that way, the more it sort of is that way, and then it's diminishing returns. A couple of major parasites, misguided, greedy people hoover up everything else. 95.5 is what it ends up being. Although whether or not the 5 will stay intact is another thing, because on a pirate ship, you're dealing with pirates, and every pirate wants to be their own captain, right? On a certain level. Now, sometimes not. Sometimes some will try to put themselves somewhere in between, but still, the net result is the same. There's a reason why pirate crews didn't stay together over long periods of time. The basic premise of the operation isn't really all that conducive to good people, is it? Taking stuff just because you can, kind of thing. That's pretty crazy. But it has been known to work from time to time and place to place, but not forever. But if you need a lot to have to front a lot and then think that that's going to get you where you want to go, such as in a state of contentment, satisfaction, repose, and being, such as feeling yourself to be rich internally and not just doing that for appearance's sake, as if that would make any sense at all to a spiritual person. But see, worldly people like to have the best of both worlds, don't they? That's why these narcissists, they actually want to be revered. They don't want to be enlightened. And so their practice is external to that extent, which is to say vain, which is to say misguided, which is to say counterproductive for them. But let's hope that's just a minority of deluded fools out there. I won't say it's endemic, but it's a factor. Anything can become a factor. You can go so far in the right direction, the good direction, that it becomes bad. You ever meet people that do that? Like there's a good diet and then they take it to an extreme and end up nearly dying. It could be anything, like go-go berries. There's always some type of new thing because they're really ready to jump on it because they're really not feeling all that great. So they're looking for solutions, and then what do? They jump on that barrel in the river, and then they just start running faster and faster. Yeah, it's tragic. I mean, you can overdo anything except skillful practice, because the definition is that you would only use it to the extent that it is skillful, and then not consider it practice when you are being, because you've reached the state of being where you don't need to continue doing something. You've arrived. Have you ever experienced that, going on vacation but you don't feel like you've arrived because your mind is captured somewhere else? How do you start having a vacation? Well, you have to say, I have arrived. I am here. I am now. Here, now. Here, here, here. Not there, here, now. Not then, now. And you have to do that. You have to talk yourself down. It's like a dog. Sit down. No, sit. Sit. It's like that. That's exactly what it's like. Why do we like dogs? Because we see ourselves in them. But see, we feel masterful when we're telling the dog what to do, but we don't do that to ourselves. We're not good owners. We pamper ourselves in the wrong places. We put up with too much nonsense, barking at the moon, running around, eating garbage, humping what one can, taking stuff away from the cat for no reason whatsoever, out of the blue. Coming back muddy, throwing up because some ate something funny, smelling like something out of the swamp, just roaming and roving, ducking and dodging, panting and slurping, and all that other stuff. And yet, look, the dog does not beat itself up about being some type of failure as a dog, no matter how bad the damn dog is. It's not having that kind of conversation with itself when it's licking its wounds. And neither should you. But being a damn dumb dog doesn't pay out, does it? So don't be one. If you've been through the briar patch one time, you don't need to go back in there. It's okay that you went through there. Have you ever seen a dog come real close to an electric fence and then stick out its tongue and then BAM! One time. That's it. One time. One and done. It's okay. That's still a good dog. It was going to happen eventually. But on the other hand, don't psych yourself out. If that has happened to you in some form or another, it's not transferable to other things. You were in a bad relationship, compartmentalize it. Put it in a container, put it in a box, lock it away, put it in storage, and guess what? In 3 weeks or so, it's just going to get recycled and you don't have to think about it. You can reclaim it, but why would you do that? And you take the L, you put an L on the label of the carton that when you give it into storage with that provision that it can be disposed of after a certain time. And that's it. It's ice cold. You organize it, you put all the things in there, you close the box, you bring it there, and you leave it. You could do it with that. You've probably done that. Well, this is how you do it emotionally. Think of yourself as a machine. Think of your junk as clutter. And now organize. The decluttering program, you hit the button, beep, and just collect it all. Compartmentalize it. Put it away and then let it go. It's out of your hands. It is not you. It is not yours. A year ago, you were a very different person. Your mind was in a very different place. You liked shoes for some reason that looked like lemons. And there's a couple of strange photos. But now you're sporting moccasins. And you've walked quite a long way in them. So you don't need to hate on foolish past selves or past times. You're not comparing yourself to that. That just doesn't exist. And that's perfectly okay. That's how we develop as human beings. That's how we cultivate ourselves. That's how stewardship works. There was all this clutter, but now it's gone, which means there's an opportunity to do other things in the space. So it's just a neutral process like that. And no, you're not schizophrenic. No, you're not this, that, or other kind of psychological label. You're not a psychopath. You're not cold. Because people like to come out of somewhere and try to make something important, especially if they know some type of weakness. Like if you might have had one drink or another, or one drink too many at one time, people want to put you in that back box forever. Like, oh, make sure there's something, or how is your drinking? Like they bring it up every time. It's like, I haven't taken a drop to drink in like the last 10 years. You know? It's like, it's sort of embarrassing how little they care to get to know the new you. But it is understandable that normal people don't put in much of an effort to see the capacity in other people to change, because perhaps they don't think they have that capacity themselves, or they don't make use of it. And yet to be judged by them on the basis of their ideas of you, they think, from a bygone age, it's just inappropriate, really, and unskillful. And yet, this is how people normally are. Unless they determine to be better than that, which very few people do, unfortunately. But then you're looking at people that aren't on your level, are they? They don't know you. They don't know how you think. They don't really care. Even if they profess to, appear to they're not willing to take the time and to formulate a different assessment of you based on different realities that they don't care enough to notice, apparently, or aren't skilled enough to recognize them. So yeah, people saying that they think you know you, that's really sort of all delusional. Also, you thinking you know other people. It's a dynamic world out there. Now, on the other hand, yeah, some people do generally stay the same, and some people are very good, and it's very good that they stay that way. But this is a dynamic environment. As purgatory has stuff going on, popping off. This was a good neighborhood 3 weeks ago. Somebody moved in last week. This place is dangerous. And how is that? Well, look at here. There's bullet holes. There's this. 3 people were killed. Did you want that to happen? Did anybody in the neighborhood want that to happen? And yet, in purgatory, all kind of things happen. That does not mean that there are no nice places at different periods in time. I mean, the Mediterranean had, and still has to a certain degree, some pockets of civilization worth experiencing. Now, those places are rapidly disappearing based on some of the worst political and sociological occurrences that have ever plagued this planet that we know of. But look, saving the planet or looking at macro trends and missing all of the remaining places that are more than enough for any one person in this lifetime to enjoy and appreciate. And you know what? Maybe all those terrible prognoses and everything, maybe all that'll change in like the next couple of weeks because people decide to do things completely differently with a new set of people, new set of principles, new sets of priorities, new sets of options, new sets of everything. And then that sad sack kind of prognosis that we're all going to die, Chicken Littleism, just looks ridiculous 2 years later when we all start flying around with hoverboards like in Back to the Future. So delusion is a hell of a thing. And the best thing we can do is to become less delusional. Or have as little amount of it or tolerate none of it. At least within our cranium, if we can catch it, which is not an easy thing to do. Why is delusion 1/3 of our problems? Yeah, because it's so prevalent and we don't see it. We might know things, but we don't know the right things. We don't know how to live. And that's why we're dissatisfied. It's that simple, but simple problems can be made very complex, especially when there's a social component to the human experience, which is, needless to say, less than perfect. But that's by design. That's not a bug, it's a feature. So you wanting to have this comfort zone, wanting to have all these things and then feeling disappointed you don't have them. This is very unskillful kind of cognitively gibberish-like way of thinking that needs to be dispensed with on an individual level, which means it needs to start with you. Yes, right here, right now, this second, you need to start. But what is need to start? That sounds like I'm telling you to do something. You should know. And if you don't know, no one can help you, kind of thing. It's like people say, hey, you know what you need? You got GPS, right? Okay. I recommend like one that has like it's not your phone. Your phones aren't probably not gonna work all the time in all places in the world. You need a separate GPS. And maybe one that runs on batteries. Who knows? There's an older one with the AA batteries. But I'm the hiker that says, I see you have that type of GPS, but do you have any spare batteries with you? Because when your batteries run out in the bush, and that's the only thing you got, you're going to be SOL. To discount somebody that says that to you, you can do it. It's just not a smart thing to do. So when someone says you need to develop and stick to a practice, despite what our cultural norms say, and a lot of people not getting these things right, even if they pretend that they are, taking a lot of drugs to feel normal, and normal isn't good. This could be the best favor you've ever done for yourself. Long term. Committing to the importance of that new point of view. No, materialism doesn't have the answers. They just profess to have them. And their pitch gets you into a way of living that is not sustainable by design. You might make more, well, they're going to raise the costs or devalue the currency. They don't want people sitting around on their plantations. And it's a different way of looking at the world. It's not really a democratic way, is it? It's not a nationalistic or culturally traditional way of seeing things. Globalized utilitarianism, atomism, how do you want to call it? Just complete disconnect from peoples and cultures for materialistic, for digitry. It's pretty flat down basic like that. These people are like the philosophical equivalent of like used to do these psychological experiments with monkeys. Take the mother away and put them on like a mother made out of iron. See how messed up the chimp would be by having no comfort, no genuine regard for its well-being except for nutrition. You can already see the intentionality in experiments like that, how these monstrous worldly people were thinking at that time. That Zero F's watch, big on that left hand. But yeah, a lot of people are the equivalent of those chimps raised on iron. What is it, chicken wire? Chicken wire mothers, yeah. Like the way that sounds. Could probably write a poem about that or some type of poetic rap. You and your chicken wire mothers on the global plantation, man. They'd have to shut down that concert. That'd get out of control. But look, it's okay, people. It's okay. This dimension was not meant to be perfect. I think it's okay to make criticisms uh, just for the sake of it. You went to a place, the food didn't taste good, you're allowed to talk about that. Let me know if I should care. That's just what being civil is all about. I might think completely different than you, but I'm not hiding anything when I'm talking out loud. What am I hiding? Where is my minigun and my predator laser here where I'm blasting people out of the trees? Well, I'm just shooting the breeze. And if even half of it is wrong, that's okay. What human being can profess to be right about all things when the human being in question happens to be a practical philosopher that knows about the three poisons, the chief amongst them, delusion? That's the guy you're going to give a charge to for professing to know the one and only truth of purgatory? Is that what Dante did? That's why I say, why can't it just be understood as literary, as a cultural commentary, as a general observation, a well-wishing, despite perhaps some cross words on some things that do require a little bit of cross-checking. So I don't think the situation is lost. I think people can exercise personal autonomy. And I also think that socially we can evolve in a much better direction, and that's why I'm giving myself the time to critique these things. I know we can do it. When I look at Freistadt, Augsburg, or Thebes, or Ephesus, or Alexandria, or Athens of the past, I know we can do it. In many places, they're still doing pretty well, all things considered. So don't give up hope. We belong to some of the most talented, creative, positive, inspirational, ecstatic kinds of people that have ever existed on this planet or ever will. So don't lose faith in good people, because they are out there. At least 1 million, but probably a lot more. It's just they're laying low. In times of cultural terrorism, who's out there saying, hi, I'm the next this and that, when that's not how distribution works. All that crappy music, that's the people who put that out now, like a vending machine. They're the vending machine dispensers of dipped in septic tank Pez. Can that be changed? Of course it can. The first thing you can do is just tune out of that jazz. Put those earphones, those noise cancelers, put them on. I saw they had recently, they have little pods. So you can even have the small ones that aren't as big and bulky. People won't even know you have them on. And then you could probably remotely or discreetly activate them and deactivate them. So how cool is that? That's a technological solution that could bring people a lot less aggravation than just having your ears open for any old noise or bad music or bad cultural norms or bad takes on history, bad politics, bad economic games and theories and practices, and just a whole slew of other personal and civilizational problems should they manifest. But what type of people are we? Well, we're people that change if something is bad. We'll change. The building is full of termites. All right, demolish it. Build a new one. Build a different one. Build a better one. Right? What can we do now? Well, we can dig, let's say, a 4-story garage. That wasn't possible in 1890, or it wasn't really all that easy given the level of machinery that they had. Hydraulics wasn't as far along as today, so now it's no problemo. Well, is that the best we can do? And that's how conversations can be had these days. So what did our ancestors want? They wanted democracy. How do we do that better? There you go. Get some engineers together. Disinterested kind of people. And then say, all right, what do the people want and how do we do it? Kind of thing. Like reestablishing a respectful relationship with civil society. Why not? I'm sure a lot more people can be accommodated that way than presently. And why should that be considered some type of terrible thing that couldn't possibly be entertained because certain people seem to think that they're not losing their grip on their ill-gotten gains when they can just cash out. A lot of these people, they've taken so much money, they've taken away the entire futures of places. So why can't they cash out? Of course they can. And if they don't want to go cash them out, they can do some other flim-flammery. They can get into there's so many flim-flam things out there. We don't need flim-flammers in politics. But here they come again. So without having people that can spot them, especially the rich ones, because they won't drop the dime on them because they went to the same brainwash tank kind of cage place. That's not a working, functioning civil society, economy, culture, organization, you name it. It's just not. So the people and the culture that led to that, they're defunct by definition. But the idea is not defunct. It's just the execution. Letting more voices participate that matter, but not the voices that were deliberately created to be noise. That's the whole reason why they were injected into the situation in the first place, to jam it up, make it ridiculous, make it impossible. No way to remedy a situation. Well, who's going to win by default? The bean counters. So yeah, you need a sweeping change, fundamental reestablishment of governmental integrity, decency, and respect. But it's a 1917 kind of looking like situation, isn't it? People that know that and still aren't going to do the right thing. So how other people deal with that, that's up to them. If it's not your country or your region or your locality, great. If it is, yeah, that sort of stinks, doesn't it? I'm not saying that's where I'm from at all. It's just by watching the news. from different places. Like I was checking out the Jamaican news the other day, and what was else? Oh, Bolivia was another one, and then Kenya, and what was the other country? Sudan, and Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Kazakhstan. I mean, the world's such a wonderfully diverse place still. So I think it's a pretty established fact at this point what these brigands have been up to, what they've done, and that it hasn't been anything but predatory and destructive, suppressatory, inversionary, appropriationist, etc. Murderous and criminal. So that's sort of, just something that someone could get caught up with if one wanted to get in deeper into worldly affairs, which I don't recommend because but if you do, you can go straight past it into psychology and then just categorize things into wholesome and unwholesome, which then can lead us back to the serenity prayer, which is give us the wisdom to know the difference. What can we change, what can't we? But can we change people's minds by showing them a different way of thinking and operating? If so, maybe that is a good thing. But there's so many people that are against communication, like they think it's inherently bad. But there are other people that really love communication because they gain so much by it, because it's so enlightening. And within that enlightenment, there is the seed of potential change. I thought drinking was good and acceptable. Now I don't see it that way, and I don't think that way, and I don't act that way. I am different. I am better than before. I am. Now some people would dispute that. I would dispute that they know what they're talking about. But they do that. Can you believe that? Even on something like that, you will get people come out and make like a smug face like these smuggies do, and tell you straight up and down that they think you're like a weakling or something like that. So look, purgatory is not going to stop being purgatory. But victory is sweet. And personal victories are the sweetest of all. So here's the thing about aversion. You can find yourself engaging in it. So let your dog run a little bit with it. Watch him engage in it and watch him chew on that bone. And just be aware of what he's doing. And then think, okay, so if this has an egoic component, it might be suffering enough. It might be unskillful behavior, but it might be suffering enough that it's looking for something to blame again, see? So it's picking up that aversion. It's like, all right, you're in a state of rage again because of different factors, let's call them socioeconomic, political, or cosmic. Could be anything. See, your ego could pick it out. Different day. It's going to be a different damn thing. But that can also be the Mara mind. Like, okay, it's this. It's that. No, wait a second. It's this, that, and the other thing. And then we go round and round and round and round. So it really doesn't matter what it is. What does matter is our engagement. Our time matters. Your time matters. Don't spend your time in aversion. Get your mind out of the kennel. So catch yourself, drop it. That's it. It's that simple. But we often don't catch ourselves, or we catch ourselves after 5 minutes of like straight cursing. Some of you, the really unskillful people out there, they do all different types of things. I've seen people, they're hitting punching bags. They had to tell him, look, we're turning off the lights here. It's lights out. If the dude was going all day, he still wasn't done. Because people are getting, accumulating all different types of experiences in strange times these days. But actually at all times. Because it's karma. If it's messing with you like that, there's a reason. And the way is through it, not with it. And there is a limit to how far physicality can go to remedy enraging circumstances, which are truly enraging. So let's not perform double think. Let's not suppress or deny enraging things. There are truly enraging things happening all the time, especially in mismanaged places that are deliberately designed to be that way. It's really annoying. But it could be really anything that you get your mind caught up in. Are you in that mismanagement now, or did you find a place where you can take a breather? Because if you did, then your mind shouldn't be back in that place. There is no perfect system on this planet. There is skillfulness, unskillfulness. There is wholesomeness, unwholesomeness. There is identification with things, and there is disidentification or de-identification with things. Reclaim your identification. That is not me, that is not mine. This whole group I'm supposed to be in, I might not be in that group. Somebody might put me in that group. Who's putting me in that group? I'm not in that box. Don't put yourself in these damn boxes. People are framing themselves in to make themselves miserable, and they're giving themselves requirements to be happy that are doomed to fail. That exterior validation, that is not going to work for you, even in the short term, but long term, of course it won't. Look, it's great when you, as a very advanced, sensitive kind of person, resonate with other people that are the same way. Let me tell you, that experience is not common. It's super normal. It's exceptional. That's why people prize it so much. But it's not something you can set your baseline to. You just can't. That's like saying, I want to eat caviar all the time, and only the kind from the best places that only people know that no. Well, how happy are you going to be there then? Unless you're the king or queen of Siam. So what is the lesson? The lesson is, don't get caught up in intricate requirements for happiness, contentment, or life in general, outlook, or critique from past encounters. Right here, right now, you are free. You have the key right here, right now to release yourself from the future and the past, if you do it. You don't have to think about nothing from the past. What happened 2 months ago on Tuesday at 4:30 in the morning? You don't know. You don't know that, but you're remembering something further down the line that makes you get angry every now and again. That's a bad habit. Do you pick your nose in public too? How? That's pretty disgusting, isn't it? Why would you fill your mind with aversion or allow it to continue? It can happen. It can come from anywhere. That's something a lot of people don't have control over. But once it arises, why didn't you just tip it in the bin? Why did you open that stinky bag that, oh, it was in the dumpster for that long, and you open that up again? Oh, it stinks. Your mood is gone. Your vitality is gone. And there you are going through that trash can. Don't do that. If you wake up, put that bag back in the bin, go in, wash your hands, and don't do it again. And with the washing the hands, it might not be one and done. Your washing routine might not be good enough. You can up your washing your hands game. How about this? Some people have little brushes, little sponges. They experiment with soaps. They have an initial soap, then they wash that off, then they have a middle soap, and then they have a third process. There's all different types of levels of that you can take to hygiene. And the same with your spirit, heart, and mind. You need to apply more than just what you think is sufficient. If you really do prize your health, especially when you're dealing with very toxic things, very poisonous substances, that people have been known to die prematurely of because they were not hygienic enough with these caustic, acidic substances. Explosive substances, how about that? Flammable substances. My jet fuel that I am regularly find myself in a drum of, that stuff burns, even when it's not lit on fire. It's not meant really to be in contact with such a delicate skin. But purgatory. So, what can be done? Well, I can get myself out of the drum, and I have a whole bunch of different procedures to get that stink off me. And then I add the gratitude to the equation. Hey, all of a sudden, look at this. I got a drum of jet fuel. What do these people got? They probably don't got a can of Folgers to barter with. So who needs them? But look, I get it. Being a complete recluse or hermit or somebody who rejects society or this world because it's not perfect, that's not the middle path. Don't require or expect perfection from yourself or others. Be compassionate with yourself and others. The kid who's crying with the stinky diaper, please, for God's sakes, don't treat it like an adult. Just take care of the mess and things will change. The mood will improve. And there's no hate, there's no blame involved in any of that. Sometimes we get really angry for no reason. That's what I'm saying. I think this anger, a lot of it could be past lives in my case. I don't want to ascribe it to any one or thing in particular because I know how delusional those kinds of games can be. It's just my jet fuel. It's an abstract concept. It's an alchemical process. And as far as me burning, yeah, that's my lot in life. That's part of my weight. If it's not burned off in this life, guess what? Future times await. That's where it's going to get burned, one way or another. Because these things have that stickiness to them. No, you didn't get away with the stuff that you suppressed and are in denial about. You didn't. Still there. So knowing that makes things a lot more simple. Imagine if they didn't tell girls, for example, like when the ding-a-ling goes in, kids come out, and they didn't know how that process worked, so that they couldn't take agency and say, well, I'm not going to let just any old ding-a-ling in there, because I don't want just any kid coming out. You see how you can be proactive in life because you know that? And yet look how unskillful many people are still, even if they know that. So, yeah, a lot of people are dumb animals. But you don't have to be. On the other hand, you could overdo that. Like you could say, well, I see this principle, and so because everyone has to be perfect, nobody's getting near me except, the king, priest, magician, comedy routine kind of visionary prophet, madman kind of guy. I like wearing leather jackets and riding around on motorcycles kind of person. Yeah, don't do that. Look, there's someone most likely in your vicinity that would probably be good enough. If you could get your mind right and just put up with whatever other things are involved in that type of situation. But as we know, relationships don't often bring all the things we expect they do. They often bring the things that we weren't expecting. And that's okay too, but don't have any high hopes that any type of relationship is going to solve any type of existential crises for you, because they really don't. At least not for men, they don't. That's sort of the beginning of the existential crisis for men. Look, which is not really all that funny. It's very difficult. It's a very difficult position to be in. But that's not to say it happens all the time. Look, people are just trying to survive these days in these crazy times. And part of it is crazy because things are just changing so fast, so you can see a neutrality in it. You don't have to see some type of maniacal conspiracy, which would be the paranoid thing to do, which is also not anywhere near the middle path. And there's some blame in it, and there's also some fear in it. So it's understandable where it comes from, especially combined with ego, that egoic deflection, it's blame. And then that mixed in with it, it's understandable how it can happen, but don't do it. It's unskillful. Fear is unwholesome. Unnecessary fear. I mean, it's understandable. The deer whose head raises up when a twig cracks thinks it could die. But it's a false positive. But the fear was unnecessary. So we psych ourselves out that time, in that way all the time, and we really shouldn't do that, because that's also the thinking egoic personality that wants to know and then starts looking for or seeing things, mirages, rather than saying, okay, this is a historical moment, the facts are, or this situation is not favorable for me here under these circumstances, so it is what it is, and that's it. There's no extras on top of that. As Alexandria was falling apart, the people had to make decisions for themselves. Building boats came back into vogue. for a couple of years until they all left because the environmental conditions had degraded. It's no longer the fun, civilized beachfront kind of place. It was sort of a rundown, arbitrary, and dangerous place. You see? Forms, conditions, randomness. But yeah, some, I guess, stayed there and were, chewed into the new way of doing things. But there's all karma is involved with all different types of decisions people make for themselves to stay or go, to do something or not to do something. To collect together or to scatter. There's different times for different things, for different reasons, and there's really no right or wrong to it. No rhyme or reason to it, other than we're dealing with, purgatory-like situations, but that doesn't mean that there aren't heavenly possibilities at different times with the right mindset. Of course, you're going to have more of opportunity to think and experience and be that way if you're not captured in the other non-skillful ways of thinking, such as my family has lived here for centuries and we were the definitive cultural bright lights of this place, and therefore we should determine the futurity of this place, when you have a bunch of barbarians and ruffians that have no connection with that past, nor do they want anything to do with someone else predating on the things they want to predate on with impunity. So, yeah, is conflict sort of set up in some places? Probably. But that makes for very fascinating personal histories. If you embrace all the suffering of life and do see it as transformational, then that opens the door to heroic ways of thinking and acting and being, which wouldn't have been as possible if everything was A-okay. So imagine that, like one of your previous selves or something said, "Hey, no, don't send me to the boring places. Send me to send me to the transformative places." You hit the transformative destination button. That's what you did. Probably. If you're here and you're fighting the good fight, that's probably what happened. Because these things don't happen by accident. And for those who do suffer and do prove themselves to be of noble temperament, character, virtue, then you are the real thing. You have managed, despite all of the bad things, to be good. You're a hero. And just think, oh, it should be easy. Well, it's not heroic if it's easy, dummy. The heroic things are hard. Don't take one letter out of hard. Capitalize it, hard, H-A-R-D. Isn't it great that there are some hard things out there? Hard to accomplish, and yet that's what makes them great. That's the gloriousness of the achievement. That's why it's so incredibly pricelessly valuable, despite people disputing that. Oh, who's this bum? That's how some people think. But who cares? You're not out there saying, "Hey, people, guess what? I have attained such a high level of enlightenment that you could start worshiping me as a divine being. And if you don't start doing that, I'm going to throw a tantrum. Yeah, no, if you're really not a malignant narcissist, you're not. You don't require the supply. You give it away for free. You're generous. That's what generosity looks like. Hey, you know what? I got a plantation of apples. I'm a horticulturalist. I got tractors full of some of the best apples that have ever been developed on this planet. I don't have the time to bring it to you personally, but here, look, you can take as however much you want. I'm not going to run out. I'm okay. I'm good. All those people sending me coffee, they're doing it to get that karma back. That coffee, that could have been the thing that tipped the scale in their favor. Some people are superstitious like that. For example, Asian people, they know certain little things like that can change a whole situation. They're also listening for numbers because they know that this world is not just a pure coincidence. So you never know, but things like that, we tend to discount that in materialistic, worldly kind of places, where it's always about the, multi-millions, otherwise it doesn't count kind of culture. But these things have sometimes a magical significance that is beyond comprehension. And so look at the small things. Every detail of your life is important. So stop overlooking it and stop complaining about jet fuel. Stop complaining about dark energy. Start managing it more effectively. And if that means going into karma burn for weeks on end because that's what it takes, then do it. Don't let anybody tell you that that's not what's necessary when it is. But also don't go into it with an expectation that it's going to solve all of your problems, because it won't. It's a practice. When I hit the speed bag and the bag comes back and hits me in the face, it could happen any time I'm hitting the bag. But the practice is about getting into the flow. But occasionally, it's still gonna possibly do that. That's just part of this dimension. It's part of the formula. But there's best management practices, and that's really what it's all about. And not being deceptive about them. Like, I thought it was good, but it wasn't, so now I'm going to make an adaptation. Yesterday, this was good, today it's not. Kind of flexibility. Like, I don't know why I'm not going to do this today, but I'm going to trust my gut on this one. That type of intuition. And tending to prioritize the internal spiritual manifesting being journey and not the external manifestation game. Because really that takes care of itself once the internal game is congruent. Because you can't really have congruency outside of your internal state if your internal state has not been refined to a point that there could be a harmonious congruence, if that makes any sense. So hit pause, play it back, play it on repeat, just over and over again. And small repetitive actions that mean something, make them mean something to you. When you do something, make it meaningful. You have to bring sincerity and authenticity to the game. It has to mean something for you. When you click that button and send me a coffee, don't just go through the motions and do it that way. But that's not what I'm going to recommend that you do. Don't send me that coffee. But just as an example, okay? What you do, do it with sincerity and authenticity. And don't do too many things that you then lose that. If you're making tea, just make tea. Don't rush it. Don't not be aware of making tea. Every part of the process is meaningful as you make it. So make it more meaningful. Stretch things out. Make them more formal and ritualistic. Make them beautiful, small, achievable, repeatable, important. You convey these things. You manifest them. You raise the frequency. And then you skillfully act. Here's another tip for you crazy HSPs out there. Is that when your ego or egoic mechanism is asking you over and over and over and over and over again, why? Just give it back a flippant answer. It had to be that way. Or something about this is good. That's the type of talk back that you give yourself. There is something good about this. Like I said, somebody that you thought was one way turned out to be completely different. They tricked you. But now they showed themselves, they revealed themselves to not be that good thing. That's good. Some people say, well, I'm disillusioned. Yes, dis plus illusion. You dissed your illusion. Your illusion dissed you. Now discard it. Discard the emotional shock that you associate with that disillusionment. You misperceived. Now you see correctly. Now things are not the favorable way you thought they were. That's good. That's very good. So add up all the things. What do you still have about you? Do you still have the breath? Can you take a deep breath? Keep doing that. You didn't lose anything except your delusion, and that's a good thing. The subconscious, that it didn't seep down to that level yet, so you got to let that seep out. And then just don't make a similar mistake. That's usually how it works. And then if you get something, good. If you drop something, that's good too. Can't take everything with you on this journey. You might win some things, you're going to lose some things. Eventually we lose everything. You're rich, you're going to lose everything. You're poor, you're going to lose everything. So it's about curation. And a lot of you have way more than enough. What you don't have is contentment. You don't have peace. You don't have that perspective that you're missing when your ego is screaming to you, why? You just say, I might not know now. You don't know. You definitely don't know. But I also don't know. But as the voice of wisdom, I'm going to say that there is something good in this. It's just, it hasn't really been revealed yet. And a lot of things do reveal themselves in time. Like 1 year later, like, wow, I can't believe I'm in such a better place now. And I was crying about this thing, this cup of spilt milk. And I was just focusing like an HSP with my James Webb telescope level of insight. I'm looking into the abyss of dissatisfaction on this little thing, this little coordinate on the grid of deep space. I'm over focusing on that. And I'm egoically locked in, and that's the whole reason for my dilemma. So it's not looking through the telescope that is the issue. It's getting down and dealing with the hydraulics so that you can move that thing to different locations. But yeah, that requires doing the work. It's not easy. Like you want to try to. Those things are heavy, right? Now James Webb isn't, but still, okay. Let's put ourselves in the James Webb. How does it move? It needs some thrusters. Needs some boosters. It needs different ways that it uses to move itself. It needs to burn some energy in the right way to get the right results. So again, you're hung up on alcohol. Your system saying drink. Give it all the water it needs. Give it more. Like your water bottle, your whole liter, drink it all the way down now. Refill it and drink that too. So here you go. This is what you wanted. You want an answer? The answer is something good will come of this. So have faith that that is the case. It will. Old people know this. They've been through so many things. They thought it was the end of the world. That's why they're so relaxed. But young people, we can get really caught up in their imagination, in their delusions, in their desires and cravings and aversions, and all of that. So it is a minefield. And that pain, it is real, so acknowledge it. But don't keep putting that finger in the dang light socket when you know it is just working you up. It's just aversion. It's not yours. It's not you. It's just aversion. It's manifesting itself in this way. So fade it. Flush it. Distract it. Don't treat it with the importance it wants you to treat it with. It's not important. It's a defilement. That egoic lock, yeah, that's how the mechanism works. Won't let go. So you have to massage it. You have to do the counterintuitive thing. You got to bring compassion to the game. You got to slow things down. You got to drop it. The dog trainer. Drop the ball. Drop. 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 See? Sometimes it doesn't drop. Now, some people want to hit the dog, but that's not the skillful way, is it? Skillful way, what is it? Pull out of the pocket a nice treat, a little piece of bacon. Ooh, now the dog wants to listen. Now that ball is dust. Never even had the ball in its mouth. So give yourself something like that to think about. Just let yourself contemplate better states of mind that aren't outcome independent, just for the state of being, the state of your purification ritual, the practice of your practice, the becoming of becoming, the fading of fading, the being of being. Someone wrote in and said, oh, it felt so good how you describe washing your hands. Please talk more about that. Thank you. And I thought about it for a second, and I thought I left something out. Look, it's not just washing off. You have to recondition. You have to repair. And every day your hands can tell you a story. You might have a small injury. And if you didn't notice it, it could become a serious injury. But if you notice it in time and you have the compassion and the awareness and the skill and again the compassion, because wait a second, let's just take 5 minutes here and breathe in deep. What is important again? What am I working for again? I cannot take the time that this requires. What is wrong with my priority? If I can be so distracted to forget these types of significant, insignificant kind of things that are in the details, but more important than people think until it becomes important because there's some kind of situation that develops out of just basic neglect. How could that be skillful? Do you see how awful unskillfulness can be in these types of really dumb but very important manners? So there's the physical side of that, but there's the spiritual side. Don't let any of these thoughts get you into some type of loop. Don't, if you're awfulizing something, stop that now. Aversion, stop it. A grudge, drop it. Anger, drop it. Take a breath. You are separate from any type of drama, even in your most immediate vicinity. You are spiritually distinct, separate, and you're always about creating new boundaries, internal ones as well as external ones. But the internal ones, they're not penetrable because you are the sovereign of your soul. The highest of high has imbued within you the breath of life of Logos. He has given you so many gifts to transform in this realm. And pain is a distinct, undeniable part of this dimension. But it was not intended to destroy you. It was intended to transform you. Your pain is valuable if you use it skillfully. If you find that one point in 360 degrees, have you looked at something 360 ways? You haven't? Well, then you haven't put in right effort. That 1 degree you will find if you look for it, and not just one. You're lazy, you're misguided, and you're neglectful, and you're harming yourself and everyone that is waiting for you to make this transformation so you can be that person for them that they need, because that's your destiny, to be a light to this dimension, a burning torch, kinas, to illuminate this dark realm with your fire of creativity, of energy, of vitality, everywhere you are, because you're not hindered and overburdened with these things that we can think up at any moment to drive us crazy. And people do this because they're lacking the skills that you have to stop it, to drop it. You recognize, you're aware, you see it and you drop it, and you know it's not normal. It's not normal. That's a superpower that you have. Other people, it takes them to hell. And there's a lot of people down there because that's the garbage disposal of the universe of souls. And so we don't dispute that it exists and that people make bad decisions, but we take the supernormal path because that is our destiny, because we made it our destiny, because we changed our destiny, because we put in that right effort with right view, and we never stop. We never stop. Till our last breath, we will not stop. That is the power that we have discovered. And we didn't just discover it, we lived it. Because to manifest that power is to be good, to be of God. And that is what we are when we are aware of that fact. Never forget it. Always find yourself. The moment you return to consciousness is the possibility, the seed, to curate and cultivate your life as a steward. A true steward, a divinely inspired being, to do good in this realm, despite all of the difficulties. Because you are divine. Okay, so some people are asking and thinking, all right, I understood that about aiming and aim. But isn't that all still thinking? And yeah, that is what it is, which is why it won't be effective unless you are able to connect it to the inner horse. You're able to put the saddle the horse, let the horse ride around with the new aiming. See, you could think of yourself as an archer on horseback. There you go. See, a centaur is also a representative of the state of man, where it's emphasizing the more animalistic side of man. Is the man in charge or is the horse in charge? Where is your horse taking you? How are you riding on the horse? Is your saddle comfortable? Is it made skillfully? Is it a skillful saddle? Or are you not tightening the right loops? Or is it the wrong saddle for your horse? And then again, where are you riding? Is it just taking you where it wants to graze? Even though that landscape is not really conducive to that. It's toxic in some way. It's just falling for bait. And you're just letting it do that because there's a culture of resignation and ignorance and unskillfulness at this time. So yeah, the planning and the aiming is not enough. It's the firing that people like to forget about. But that firing, it's not as clear as people would egoically like it to be, because otherwise they would do that. No. It's about getting into alignment and letting an osmosis effect take place so that you start emotionally investing and visualizing, engaging in active visualization and active experiencing. Experience the plan. Not just the beginning stages, but the end state. You have to just consider that you've already accomplished the plan. And you need to just feel what that would feel like if the plan that you have put an achievable goal, not, I wouldn't say big plans. Don't make it big plans. Make these tactical plans. You already know the strategic plan. The strategic plan is, in many cases, just nibbana, okay? It's enlightenment. It is being unburdened by purgatory, despite its limitations and despite its inducements and enticements, promisings, whisperings, and all of those things we know finally are illusory because, we're dealing with potting soil kinds of people and their ideas and their concepts of what is good and what is not, and what is desirable and what is not. But this is coming from more of a common, normal, vulgar place than a wise place. So we constantly are keeping that in mind. But the tactical action, our tactical plans, like how about this? The next 2 weeks, give yourself a plan. 2 weeks is a long damn time. I actually am not a big favor of getting into future ways of thinking. Maybe 1 week, maybe, and then the day, right? Maybe the next 3 days. Try to keep it as close. Maybe do today. What do you want to accomplish in the next 3 days? What do you want to accomplish this week? I mean, you can overdo these things too. Maybe it's better not to clutter it up with too many things, because that also can become a bad habit. That's why getting into the egoic way of thinking is inherently dangerous. So it's really a question, how sly are the sly techniques if they loop you again into a different form of loop that essentially is worldly. Now, you could say the sly practice knows that going into it and just uses the cycles to transform as a form of skillful karma burning. And in that case, that's what gives the sly method its sly appeal. But don't be too sly about it, because you'll end up tricking yourself, especially if you pick the wrong aims. But see, egoically, I have to do something, let me think this up real quick and let me write this down, and then you do it, and then it turns out to be perhaps unwise, but that's why you have to take the onus off of the outcomes, the dependence on outcomes, and just see it in the context of transformation. Pure transformation. This is something you have deemed to be the right thing. Let's do this without hesitation for the next 2 weeks. Let's try to get this done within the next 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks is in some cases maybe too generous, depending on the thing. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is a little bit of an ambitious goal. Maybe you won't make it, but you're not going to throw everything overboard. What you'll do is after 2 weeks, you'll do a review. Why wasn't it possible? And what is it that you need to change? Or what did you learn during that journey? And then you set another 2-week plan based on the first 2-week plan, which might be totally different from the 2-week plan. But it's about training execution. It's about setting up strategic and tactical thinking and acting skills. It's really the acting part that's the most important part, because once you have devised the theoretical components, then it is about execution. It doesn't matter how many books you read about ballet. When the performance is on, you're going to bring to ballet what you can bring in the moment, not what you left in the book. But nobody starts out the best ballet dancer or best archer. They don't. They start off as the worst. They start off at 0. So what can trip you up? Yeah, a big dumb ego that's overly sensitive and will not embrace discomfort. That will kill you and end your plans any day. That's so normal, it's so common, it's so easy, it's so wrong. But see, you're going into it already knowing that. And so when you encounter these resistances, especially the psychological ones, chronicle them, investigate them, but overcome them. Just notice them. Just write it down like, oh, this is something that tried to block me. Curious. Where did this come from? I thought this was me. I thought I was in congruence with this plan that I signed off on. And look at this. It's the third personality that I didn't really get to know up until now, but they came in and said, no, they're not doing it. I said I was going to get up at 6:15. They hit the snooze button. I didn't know this person. So let's have a little conversation with this person. So wait a second. Do. Hey, hi. Apparently we're roommates, and I said we were supposed to get up at 6:15, and you hit the snooze button. So what's going on here? You know, like having that type of open but somewhat deterministic kind of conversation. And that's really helpful because that does show you what you're really up against, and it's not straightforward. But also don't forget, randomness is going to be there, forms and conditions. What you need to overcome all that is adaptation. Okay, so your will remain unchanged, unfazed. In fact, you will invest in will charging kinds of exercises. Like recharging your battery, what you're doing is you're charging your will. So you're manifesting energy. So put your hands together and press them very hard as all of your muscles start to contract, and hold that and feel that energy. You can create energy. You can, with single point practice, manifest energy out of the electromagnetic spectrum. Just like that. Now do it according to your plan. You have to bring the energy, you have to manifest it, you have to execute. And a lot of times that's where the resistance is going to come in. Just feel that resistance. Look at that. You can see it, you're aware. This is what would be keeping me from executing, and watch me overcome it. Just like with one meal a day. Oh, I get hungry for something at 8 p.m. So of course I'm going to not break my principle. And because I set up the parameters to make it ridiculous, because how ridiculous is that? That here comes this craving even though I know I don't need anything. Watch me squash this. And then you do, but it's not easy. Even something as trivial and stupid as that is not easy. It's the hardest thing in the moment to overcome. It's what is at the point of meaning, the psychoid, the point of contact. That is your exercise. You want to take a break? No, your day's not over. You thought you could relax? You were wrong. You forgot you were in purgatory. This existence is not heavenly. Not if you don't put in right effort and right view, it isn't. So look at this little devil showed up. It's hungry. And so that's just a little victory for you. And those little victories, they add up. You won't do that in that instance. You won't deviate, at least in terms of the commitment of your will to the application of the thing you have deemed to be the most wise at the moment. And that you are in the practice of reviewing what is wise, given all of these changing forms, conditions, and randomness. And cultivating out anything that might have been unwholesome, and to cultivate and appreciate all of the wholesome things that arise, such as a feeling of congruence, a feeling of harmony, a feeling of strength, a feeling of inspiration, a feeling of autonomy. Yes, you could get up right now and walk out the door with whatever you have and just keep walking in a straight line. You could do it. But see, we let ourselves get, fortunately in some cases, see, some people, they have no control, right? People are out of control and they let it be known. But you can do the opposite of that. You can be in control and you can say, I'm going to do this, and you can do this. But see, a lot of times we put too much thinking in front of that. Well, then, we want to know everything before we begin something, but we can't know. What we're looking at is Mara. Especially if that thing is what's keeping us from executing on something that we've set out for ourselves. We know that that's what's in play. We know it. But that doesn't make it any less convincing, you see. So that's that level, the level of conviction that you need to permeate down and start engaging in visualization exercise under relaxed conditions. But again, what's relaxed? Egoically relaxed, which might mean egoically subjugated body weight kinds of conditions over long periods of time, while using proactive, imaginatory, immersive techniques to align ourselves with the new directionality that we have set out for ourselves, which may be in direct contradiction to the conditioning or phobias or traumas that could be keeping us from doing that. We're misapplying all of these terrible traumas during these cultural warlike conditions. We're misapplying them to the other things. We're applying false positives, which is a common occurrence in psychologically terroristic kinds of times and places. Well-known phenomenons, not regulated to past history, but reinvented today by the same types of lineages that set them in motion in the first place, with no kinds of regrets by the people who carried them out. They don't think they did anything wrong. 5 cents realm, worldly kinds of reasonings that they have. They're $100 million richer with their ways of doing things, despite all the other terrible things that causes, so that they don't care about. So, take care of yourself out there. And when it's raining, they're not going to be there handing out free ponchos either. But your poncho that you applied some paraffin to and So when it gets ripped, that's what keeps the rain off your back, not them. See, they're bringing the rain. They're shooting their little screwy, crooked shotguns of ice up into the clouds to make it rain on you. But with your poncho, it's just another day in the rain, isn't it? It's not all that uncomfortable. And despite their little screwy measures, they're not everywhere. And whatever remnants of that is still in your mind, you can weed that out. You can pick up the little cartridges they let strewn around and put it in a little place. And be a steward for the environment too. That's the other thing. If you're out there on pilgrimages, be a steward. All that is positive karma. If there's some type of junk or trash and there's a trash can, you can put it in, then do that. That's a little positive thing you can do. Do not trash any environments out here. Also, fires. No setting fires just for the hell of it. If you do make a fire, it should be, you can dig a hole. They have different kinds of building fire. Keep it small, and you have to keep it under control and watch it like a hawk, because there's people out here doing all types of crazy, stupid stuff, and they're destroying environments, like starting forest fires and things like that. So don't be one of those in life or in any type of natural environments. Be a steward of your micro environments. And realize there's major bad karma for trashing natural. The few remaining natural spaces of this planet, you, your family, and everything about you will be damned forever should you not take a little bit more concern about how you treat this place. And if you need an example of how people have skillfully been interacting with the forest, then you need to look to the Theravada school. None of those monks were trashing their environments. Quite the contrary. So you are out there, take a long view of things. Learn from the environment. But yeah, oftentimes the congruency part is the most important part. So building congruency between the plan and doing that imagining part. I just told you that, but you doing that is so important, because if you don't, you won't think it's possible, and you'll talk yourself out of it, or you'll give up because it's not real enough for you. And this has nothing to do with rationality. So all the tools and all the conditioning you got in the chicken factories of education are working against you during this process the entire time. In fact, your entire lives. If you've been whipped that way on the plantation, it's going to be, these scars are going to be there forever, or as long as they're there. They're more powerful than people know. Could go to someone's house, like knock on the door, open the door, say, hey, you can leave this house. This door is open. You can leave. The people look at you like, huh? Close the door. And then you watch them the rest of their life going back and forth from box to box. But the door is open. So these maniacal, hateful, misguided psychologists, they know all this stuff. And they're not really there to help you, they're there to just normalize you to a system that is essentially misguided on a lot of levels. But is that something worldly people would do? Well, of course they would. Just give them the money, they'll do it. The whole, religion and ethics part, that's something that they've redefined into Buddhism. So, makes you feel good to pinch your butt, doesn't it? So, let's have a party. Somebody bust out the drugs so we can all feel good while we do this kind of demeaning ritual. Yeah, so they're not going to good places. A lot of people aren't. Not the people minded by the cattle minders, and not the cattle minders, the PMCs. These jumping jack and leftist authoritarian wig flip kind of reprobates and illicit criminals. Yeah, no. Whatever type of life they're selling, it's not legit. So your gut feeling tells you that, trust that. Do you? But realize, yeah, it's not made easy. That's why they get into all these social denunciation games. The more crazy their minders become, the more impugnistic the minders become, the more denunciatory they become. And then it's an emotionally charged kind of denunciation as well. The people need to feel like they're doing the right thing by hurting other people. So they're really high up and trained and squared away with doing these things. And really, if we take the Gorgievian view on them, they're just robots, torpedoes. So if they're doing it in a neutral, automatistic kind of way, then you can just see them as that and take it neutrally as well. No personal offense. They're just trying to mind what they believe is their cattle. And if they're poisoning their cattle or juicing them with juice, giving them the crappiest grain they can possibly afford, and running them in the sun and all that, well, that's their business, isn't it? That's the way they see it. And if they're defrauding their shareholders and they're also under-delivering but fudging the numbers too, well, they don't have any damn problems about doing that. That's the damn business they're in. They've redefined the business to suit their own fiduciary interest at the expense of everyone else. So, yeah, the books don't add up. They cause, let's say, a 90% reduction in prosperity over time. But they get like a 10,000% boost in their own personal prosperity. So you can see how a malignantly, narcissistically captured kind of irresponsible, grotesque, worldly personality would be able to find some explanations that suit that kind of operation for themselves. But of course, they're always looking to invest in credibility boosts that could keep that franchise going just even for 1 year longer because it's so darn profitable. They do literally less than nothing and take a lion's share of the collective resources and time with them. So, beware where you're swinging your telescopic lenses. What are skunks doing right now on an abandoned road somewhere in Tennessee? Are they stinking each other up? I mean, if you're not there, do you need to care? So keep your mind out of places that it doesn't need to be, especially if you don't want what they have, which historically will be a denunciation itself. But not because their personalities weren't as brilliant as they believed them to be while they committed their major fiascos, but because the fiascos are the things that will end up defining them. But even so, what does it matter what the world thinks of worldly people? It's the lives that come that someone smarter than themselves would have been more concerned with than they were. And so, what is it about them again that makes them so special, really? Especially dense, heavy, you see, falling, clod-like. So that's their destiny, isn't it? Nothing to get worked up about. So yeah, hot take, we're conditioned to be egoic, which leads to egoic capturing. They misrepresented it as empowerment, but really it just keeps you in a lockjawed kind of mentality. And the other thing is they just increase the aggravation, social aggravation, socio-economic and political aggravation to breaking points, right? They just increase the friction levels. They call that regulatory environments. So these are the technocrats. Deliberately overcomplicating your life to make it more jammed up via their arbiters and minders and deciders and influencers and minders. Did you say something wrong? Well, you might have to come back tomorrow, and then it's closed, and then, well, the next day you're standing in a line for 5 hours, and then you might be a little bit nicer to your minder who knows what's best for you, because she's such great friends with people who through elections somehow, or bought into the franchise, and that's how they got there. That you didn't recognize how important they were until they made themselves that way, kind of racket. That Eastern Europe is full of those types of people. Russia, any authoritarian leftist kind of wrecked post-Marxist zone. I think, call it zones. They're not country, they're zones. If they're in your zone, then they're in your country. So they're not just over there. There's different flavors and varieties and stages of them. There's just the purely destructive kind and the purely kind of economic kind. Sadistic, narcissistic, schemeristic, psychopathic kind. Whatever flavor might be there for you to interact with. So Chernobyl, there's a lot of radioactivity in that area. Even though they solved the problem, they solved it like that. They tried to contain it, but these other zones, they're not so contained. The intellectual intellectuals, the non-effectual kind of lefty enablers that they put into universities to decapitate them, they see a point in that all not being wrapped up because reasons. But if you know that, then you don't have to go into that, and you also don't have to get real mad about things not working by design if they aren't really built to work, because working things are done differently by different kinds of people with different ethical standards, and none of that ideology that they have, because it's astroturf. It's a system. It's part and parcel. It's a contagion. It's an infection. It's a negative, harmful, toxic, political attack that shouldn't be tolerated in its smallest of iotas. And yet we're living with the legacy of cultural distortion, cultural inversion, cultural suppression, and so things become wonkier as alternative histories start popping out of the ground that are allowed to let that happen because it's just academic. It doesn't lead to people getting brained for no reason, of course. Later, in political terroristic takeover kind of minority majority flipping situations, don't pay attention to those details in all the places where they pulled those things off or attempted to. Don't shine a light on that. That would be chilly for people wearing no clothes in the Wizard of Oz machine that they're fronting it. So I hope you don't have that around you, and if you do, that it's regulated to nothing. And that if you have to deal with things like that, that it's a comical interaction and a brief one. But look, purgatory, that is a big part of what it looks like right now. Now, will it remain that way? I like being the guy that says, hey, let's change everything. You know, we're not going to be doing this little window dressing here and this little gesture here. We're just going to throw the whole damn thing out and start from zero. What is it that we even need done again? What is it that we want or need to have money for? Something like that. Oh, and what's the money called? It's called this? Okay. And what can you buy with it? Okay. Like that. What are we producing? What are we not producing? Okay. Let's start producing this and that and not this and that. Why do we do that? Well, we're talking to people that know what they're talking about, and we didn't politicize that process unnecessarily, because who are we engaging with that could be antagonistic to doing the right thing? Well, no one? Well, then I guess we will make leaps and bounds kinds of progress in things that people will be able to directly experience, which would then lead to credibility based on that. But, you know, it's just a theory of how things can work if they're not being obstructed by counterproductive forces in human form or in astroturf form, depending on what the case may be in your instance at the point of contact. So, but yeah, that just should give people perspectives. Now, if you take that up to a level where people would say, no, it's impossible, I disagree, but take it down to the smallest level. What about how you manage your space right now? What about your 1 meter monastery? How's that managed? How is your interior world managed? Are you blaming others? Are you encouraging your own defilements? Are you consuming greed, ill will, or delusion? If so, you need to stop that. That is the only victory that matters. And you're the only person responsible for that. I just told you what to do. If you don't do it, is it my fault? Who will suffer? Will I suffer or will you suffer? oh, but teacher, it's too hard. It's too. Look, nobody said it was easy. You want to climb a rock face? I'm not going to tell you it's easy. I'm just going to tell you it can be done with the right skills. But these skills must be practiced. How about all the muscles in your fingers? You think they're okay? They're normal? They're common? They're vulgar? Yeah, well, they're not good enough for a rock face. Now, when I tell you that, does that deflate you? Or do you notice that there's a little bit of truth in that you can use so that you know going into it what you need to do first so that you can accomplish that monumental achievement? Known worldwide as the cessation of dissatisfaction. How to dispense with rage? Well, one option is disidentify. That's a good one. See, you could think of rage as a special kind of attachment to something, and oftentimes it's abstract. For example, in times of cultural and psychological terrorism, they just try to make you angry on every level if they can. So think about it. There's two trenches. On the other trench, they're sending the flyers that say, give up, everything's bad, and all of that. And if you read that and of course some of it is true. They're not going to just send baloney. So, but those are the things that get under people's skin. So hateful, terroristic kind of people, they're really into that. Like finding out what that is and then spreading it around so that you get to read that, especially if it's under false pretenses, such as, oh, this is your kind of people are saying this about things, but actually it's their kind of people saying it's your kind of people saying these kind of things. So you're gonna get mad at it, not the people doing the bad things, but yeah, people just like you, yourself, maybe. Self-blaming is always a good thing for sadists, isn't it? I think that's what they try to achieve, mostly, especially the spineless variety, which should not be underestimated. Oh, yeah, spineless, I understand what that means. Not really. I don't think you've really investigated that subject as far as the subject goes, especially in these times where it's everywhere. And where's it coming from? Is it domestic? Is it from? We don't know. It's just sort of there, just sort of a baseline. Where do plantationists have all their money from? Was it merit, MERIT, or something else? Ooh, and if it was, what then? You got plantationists in the zone. So yeah, being conditioned in a social way and then having those forms of terrorism be all around the place so that you're conditioned to engage it's bad on levels that are sort of like war crime levels, but it's illicit at this point because to make something illegal would require the political will to do that, but then you would need a functioning political system to do that, and if you only have like a halfway functioning system, you might not be able to do that, and then you're left with prevailing terroristic kinds of gray zone activities. So, but taking it to the psychological level, look, it's your participation with these provocations that make them so extremely hateful and toxic, because it really does take two. Right? And even if it's not them, then it could just be anything. You're in a landscape, your mind will find the one thing that is not right, if you allow it to. And if you allow it to overfocus on that, you're going to wreck your time. Let me fill you in on how that works. Before you do it for yourself, see, you might think I'm spoiling something, but I intend to spoil that for you so that you don't even get into the habit of doing that, so that you don't wreck your time, or what oftentimes is the most important thing, you don't wreck the time of other people that wouldn't have wrecked their time if you didn't wreck their time with that type of perfectionism that you bring to the equation. That is just unskillful. It's not you, it's not yours. You're just too damn ignorant and unskillful to see yourself doing that and stop yourself doing that every time it arises. Despite the horrific cultural environment you might be in for different historical reasons. A lot of super cowardly and backwards reject kind of people signed off on exterminationism, and now it's propagated in your zone. It's acid rain. There's a factory, and just because people came there to try to survive, and then it became some type of industry, and then they're stuck in acid rain because of that. Isn't that unfair on some level? Isn't that pretty stupid, sadistic, and absurd? And yet, raise your hands. Look, I'm looking out at a sea of people. Raise your hands, people, if that might be you. Oh my goodness, look at that. It's like half the human population. Okay, so what do we do now? What about a spiritual practice? What about the 1 meter monastery? Is it possible to live that way under such terrible conditions? Well, the answer to that question is yes, of course. That's why it was developed in the first place. It was developed in one of the worst places in the world at this time, in order to give you the capacity to disassociate from horrible conditions of all kinds, especially the socio-cultural and political kinds, which finally are just a complicated way of describing externalities, despite our conditioning to take them more important, seriously, than an essential person, a hunter and gatherer, ever did. Look, when the hunter and gatherer came back with the boar on its shoulder and the village was burnt and there were just dead bodies, he bugged out to his second location and ate the damn thing himself. Okay, now that's not to say he forgot what happened, but he never took all those attachments all too seriously anyway. But that doesn't mean he's not gonna conduct himself in a dignified fashion, according to his own principles, which aren't just his own, but are in many ways archetypical, heroic kind of things. But how can you revenge bad karma from people creating bad things? Can you somehow remedy their doing bad with your own type of reaction to that? How do we dismantle the bridges of aversion? How do we skillfully go about dealing with horribly predatory, hateful, toxic kinds of people that are very aggressive, like in your face all the time, wherever they can be, for their own demented, neurotic reasons that one need not understand, really? And yet, that could be life in general. That could be anything. That could be thoughts. That could be a recurring memory. How you were beaten to an inch of your life by your grandmother at 7. What a strange occurrence. And that just keeps coming back. Like every dream you have, you're back in that place. Look, this is purgatory. But that can be broken. These cycles of unnecessary suffering can be abolished if we put in right effort to do so. And right effort, see how neutral that sounds? Somebody thinks, oh, right effort, that's easy. Well, what if right effort means 3, 6, 9 months in the desert? Or do you have right effort, or oh, wait a second, I didn't think it was that right of a right effort. Well, then you're not going to achieve that breakthrough. You're not going to make the shift. You're not going to burn through that karma. I hate to tell it's cause and effect. That's what it requires. You're not willing to put it in, that's not right effort. You don't want to hear that? That's your own damn problem. You don't want to be patient and compassionate with yourself. You don't want to give yourself right effort. Well, F you. That's your damn problem. Why do you think that way? Aren't you worth it? Aren't you worth right effort for yourself? Somebody said, oh, you should just get over it. That was not... You didn't get over it yet. Why? Don't overlook that part. You didn't put in the work. You didn't burn enough karma to get past it to shift. So just admit that. It's your own damn fault. Put in the right effort. Don't do it for me. Do it for you. But even if you don't care enough about you, because I know what that's all about, then think of the best versions of you and the best versions of other people like you, that you can be an assistance to, that you can help, that you can be a part of without destroying their lives. And that you can cultivate that kind of universe with a studious, meticulous, brilliant effort, time and time and time again. It doesn't matter when, middle of the night, it's there. Middle of the day, it's back. Never left you. You want to talk about magical powers. Don't want to see that. That is a magical power. Embrace that kind of magical power. Be that kind of magical power. Someone wrote in and said, I laughed out loud when you used the people wearing diapers analogy. And yeah, it's funny. Look, if you are a human being on this planet, you started off most likely in diapers. Which is to say, not most likely, you certainly started off without being able to control your bowels. Which, all things considered, is pretty basic, isn't it? But that was you at that time. But you changed. And now you don't do that, I hope. Although it could happen. Anybody been on a long car ride that then got stuck in the middle of a freezing rain storm kind of thing, and you ate the wrong thing? See, I'm getting off on another comedy. But, it's tragic when it's happening. It's funny if you can look at it from a third party kind of viewpoint, unless you're in the car, then it's not so funny, is it? But anyway, the way you can look at the diapers is the diapers of your mind, all that negative. Although I don't like the word negative. See, negative, positive, you need both of those for forward momentum with a Hall sensor. You just have to align them. See, the Hall sensor, it notices a change in magnetic polarity. So from positive to negative, and that's what keeps the whole thing rolling. So if you're that Hall sensor, that your meditative prayer is your Hall sensor. That's also where you bring positive and negative energy together and keep things rolling. This practice is not just positive. This practice is, yeah, we know what positive is, sort of. But what do we do with all that negative charge? Sort of practice. Well, you combine it, positive, negative, spinning disc style. But diapers, yeah, people, change your spiritual diapers. They're full. Your egoic diaper is busting at the seams. Most people, like malignant narcissists, for example, they've never changed that diaper. They don't want to change it. They don't think they can change it. Are they irritable? Do you know what? Is that an apt metaphor? Of course it is. So don't be that way, for God's sake. For your own damn sake. For the sake of civility, dignity, and respect. No human being should go through life with a diaper plastered on them. The diaper of dissatisfaction. You gotta drop that diaper. Drop it like it's hot. Because it is. You're a hot mess. A lot of you are hot messes. And that's why. You're missing spiritual skills. Our culture, it was lobotomized out of it thanks to TV and some of the most hateful socioeconomic and political actors the world has ever known up until this point. Lockstep, conspiratorial, hateful kinds of plantationists, operatives, and schemes. They've massively ripped off most places in the Western world at this time. Not for, the plantationists. They get the choice, the pick of the litter, they think. But everyone else gets screwed, so we can clap for them, I guess, from afar if we're into that. That's sort of how they expect us to act. But we don't have to do that. We also don't have to hate them. People wearing diapers, why hate them? I think that's a form of self-hate. It is not dropping your hot mess. That's not humane. It isn't. And so there's no envy, there's no blame, there's no hate, there's no ill will, there's no aversion, there's just dropping it and using them as a signpost. Don't be like them. Here, you thought people were ridiculous. Wait, today there's a new person. Take a look. This is the new ridiculous kind of people. This is how their little torpedo propeller spins with all the little bubbles coming out. And this is what they're trying to blow up today. These are the civil society actors they're trying to take out, or institutions, or people's ways of doing things, old people. I don't like to talk about C19, but yeah, just pulling the plug on old people. I think that was sort of the dry run in a way. There were so many other different little experimental things they were fidgeting with. But just turning the lights out on old people, that's sort of what they'll do too. These are not people that care about good things. They care about them, their cronies, and a racket. And they're sticking to their narrative no matter what. Making sure that haircut looks on point and the suits crisp, those blouses are ironed when the cameras roll. And after that, it's happy hour. But yeah, that's the problem. We are individuals, and yet we find ourselves within socioeconomic and political conditions based on causalities, which are karmic, yeah. In a way, yeah, but in a way it's also random. How did things get this bad? Well, a lot of random BS happened. And it just sort of added up, and now it's a combination of things. But yeah, just like an old car, you can look at that neutrally. Disidentify. When you junk an old clunker, are you one of those sappy, sentimental people that pine away for all of its features that were really dangerous and annoying? Like leaking oil on the ground, and overheating and stalling out, or creating dangerous driving conditions, or the broken window in the middle of winter kind of car clunker. Are you that type of sentimental person? Because that's sort of what, if you're in a Western country, that's probably the equivalent of your government right now. And then you've got anti-mechanics, like, don't fix that wiper. This is a classic. This wiper was bent into a pretzel 10 years ago, and it's staying that way. It's art. It's not a car. It's art. Why is that? Well, because we made this jalopy. We're driving it now. And when the wheels come off, we're going to get some new ones. But until then, hit the gas. Wum, wum, wum. Oh, I'll tell you, they're drag racing to hell, that's for sure. That is where these people are going. I mean, it just, the level of karma. I mean, just think if you're a bad person just doing like little one-off onesies, twosies types things. Turning the lights off on an entire country and culture, and doing it in the most demeaning, hateful, and disgusting way that has been devised up until this point, on a spineless, sadistic kind of trip. People should be frightened to be that bad, but they're not. They are bubble-fied. They're just walking around in bubble wrap, rolling around in little stinky sulfuric balls of bubble wrap. Boom, boom, boopity boom, boom. That could be another little short. The French political establishment rolls out for another speech. Boop, 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 boop. Bonjour, mon ami. Man, I'm telling you, you French, they're serving up some baguettes, aren't they? They got some baguettes on in storage for you all. What have they been eating? Oh no, it wasn't the traditional recipe. What is this? Ooh, it's goop. Where did this goop? Are the goopists there? Is it a globo goop that you get to eat now? What did you do to deserve that? Why are you so wrong? What are the things that they use to make it acceptable to genocide French people out of existence? I guess we'll have to ask the newest leftist loonies what the reason is. Why sadism should not have ended a long time ago. Probably has there's a historical, I'm sure there's memory war components to how their little hate crews predate on native peoples in France. Somebody will have to write that in the comments. Do like 3 paragraphs, like this, and this is what they do. Because maybe someone will put together like a little book of atrocities, and then you can start connecting organizations and actions, and then potentially incarcerations, and maybe in 6 months it could be that quick. Because, well, if somebody just killed 1,000 people, why shouldn't they be put away in the next 6 months? But it's not 1,000, it's probably hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands. Have like the future index. They killed the people's ideas of a good future, like 1 million people last year. What's the crime for that? They were responsible for being the leadership of that country. Oh, there's no consequence. No, it's just, it's up for debate. People's subjective feelings. This doesn't mean anything. Oh, sure it doesn't. Sure it doesn't. That's right. Don't care about that. They're just politicians. Went to fancy schools and don't think of themselves as part of the country. So technocratically, sure, they're going to come up with a lot of good ideas, such as how to further impoverish and undermine and subvert the country. Because they sure are good at doing that. If that was just some kind of performance metric, then I guess everyone would be pleased as punch. But yeah, the fascinating thing about France is it is a democratic experiment, and there are ties to the United States in a good way. Sans leftism. Like we go back to Lafayette, yeah, that's a venerable tradition and connection. Leftism isn't venerable at all. In fact, it isn't French or Western. It's a psych lab kind of program. But no, we were taught we need to include left and right, and this is the only paradigm, and these sociological war criminals should be heeded because their books are so mistaken that we should continue following their advice because of some kind of brainwashing technique, I guess. What's the argument now? Now that they've had decades to wreck the country, what is their argument now for continuing to be able to do that, to have that privilege? How do sadists come up with new stuff? Did they throw in a couple of coupons now, or? But interesting was, I think they said it was the Fifth Empire is how they called it? Well, fifth means that four fell, and this is the fifth one. So why wouldn't turning the lights off on it and starting off with the sixth one without the loonies on board, or the socioeconomic and political predator classes that think that countries need a rent-seeking class to survive when that's not true. It's like one of these famous myths. Well, what would we do if we didn't have the rent seekers? Well, yeah, we'd be doing a lot of other things with a lot less austerity. That's what. We could do half a day for us and the other half for our communities and still make enough money and still have a lot of optimism for the future left over. That's what. Is that some kind of crazy promise? Well, it would be if you're talking about a defunct system that is dominated by predatory interests. But the new system that doesn't have that, no, that's all possible. It's not. It's not a pipe dream. Look, see, everyone's like, "Oh, Africa's the worst continent in the world." Look at their damn countries. It's a gigantic country. All of them don't have ethnic problems. Some of them do, some of them don't. They got other problems, but working themselves to death is not one of their problems. And a lot of them are living much better lives than you would think. They got good food, they got intact social structures, they have simple, slow kinds of living that human beings have enjoyed, that weren't running themselves ragged with a bunch of sadistic kinds of plantationists that are telling them otherwise. Well, GDP went up 0.3%, so that's why you need to vote for us kind of people. So we're more advanced than they are? I'd say we're not. Not at this point, not with this crop of leadership. Where is their loony leader that's like importing slaves from places that hate the people's guts there and are telling them it's the right thing to do in Africa right now? Come on, you Africans, tell me, who's doing that right now, like, and considers that to be a smart politics? I want to know, because that's what they've been pulling off in Europe in the last 10 years of the hybrid war that they claim doesn't exist, like the information classes. That's not happening. No, no, no. We want to use a different word. We want to call it progress. Can't call it a hybrid war. That would be maniacal. It's like trying to push them. You push them to, oh, we're in a Cold War. A Cold War, what are they talking about? They're misapplying historical terms. It's not cold. Nothing cold about that. Nothing cold about those tear gas canisters and burning buildings and bikes and batteries and cobalt fumes and spray paints and usurpations and degradations and subversions and inversions and appropriations. There's nothing cold about that at all. That'd be hilarious talking to real people from the Cold War and saying, hey, look, they're calling this what they've been doing for the last 10 years, their last rampage. They're calling this that. Can you believe it? It's Overton again. It's like, oh, we're normalizing hybrid predation. Essentially, that's what they did the whole time. These 10 years, the most despicable 10 years on record, with all these operators associated with that, having gone on record shilling for these things, they're all out in the open. No charges yet. I mean, I'm sure there's not going to be a statute of limitations on that, but we don't know when some type of corner is going to be turned. But maybe the fifth estate is no longer credible, which is a damn shame. But just like people dying of cancer, you can do an autopsy and you can ascertain why. Well, look at the heart muscle here. You just like sawed open their chest and spread it apart. Look at the heart muscle. Look, it's all gone. There's like a big ball of goop there. That's why the fifth estate died. So yeah, don't make the sixth estate the same damn problem. Now the fourth estate people were probably thinking, or wait, I'm mixing first, second, third estate, right? And then, what was it, regime, or was it the fifth? Whatever. The fourth, when the fourth was going down, they probably thought it was the end of the world too. Or the third, or the second, or the first. That's actually the type of perspective people should have. Don't feel bad when bad things go away, but don't replace them with something worse. Okay, you don't have to go balls to the wall on repressions if you get rid of the causes that would make that necessary. Like allowing kids to be brainwashed by hateful and misguided interests. Seems like a pretty logical place to start. And then, yeah, just maybe rethinking education entirely. How we're being conditioned to fail based on old models. And people say, please don't go into politics again but look, I see it as part of the spiritual crisis, part of the mental health crisis. Yeah, I am against needless suffering. So if it takes politics to help that process to happen, I would advocate for that. Even though I know that this dimension is purgatory. It's about heroic action. That is also a sly method because well, look, it does matter what you do here. You help a lot of people. Just think how many people the Buddha helped. You help a lot, or Jesus, or any other practical philosopher. They didn't do that just to boost their purgatory fame, like a lot of these materialists do. They had a bigger picture. They were looking after this life. And so, yeah, those are inspirational figures. Why shouldn't you think that way too? Do the best you can. Don't vote for bad, misguided people on any level. And if you have only bad, misguided people, get somebody to run that isn't that and vote for them. All of these candidates that these rent seekers have passed off, they've all been terrible. But what does that mean? Well, that means you need to get new candidates that aren't affiliated with the other ones. And look, people can start off good, go bad, get rid of them, get new good people. You need to be paying attention to what your representatives are doing, what they think, and where the hell they damn came from. And if they don't have a long and reputable history in the damn country, them running for political office is a political crime. It's a form of political terrorism. Just think of the hubris of these people. They just showed up somewhere, made a couple of bad friends, and all of a sudden they're going to make the decisions for the people that have been living there since forever. They have done this in places, so That's a crime. That's an illicit activity. Hasn't yet been been officially made one, but maybe the first assembly of the sixth regime can make that happen. It's blocked now, but I think they'll be able to make that happen, and then, yeah, you're gonna have to go after and roll up all of these things that were considered to be normal in a time of socioeconomic and political terrorism. Now, if some people think I'm being over dramatic, I'll just say that you probably aren't aware of the data. Not even a minuscule amount of it, and so that's why you think what I say might seem to be over exaggerated. It's not. But once those facts become publicly known, I'm sure people wouldn't have a problem with what I just said. But that's also a political challenge, isn't it? Letting the public know and also being able to collect that data without being hindered by said terrorists. But yeah, coming back to the motivation, what motivates them? Greed, 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 greed. You think you're greedy, they're much more greedy. And greedy people have a track record. So when you spot them, they're disqualified. Just like that. Also, the professions. Lawyers, no. A government can have a team of lawyers that will write up what they decide, but they don't need damn lawyers in that first process. When you're architecting a building, you don't need the stonemason there or a group of them looking to influence the design unnecessarily. We need all this stone. It's going to be stone, a stone facade on a skyscraper because we're the stonemason union. Essentially what greedy people do. Have a lot of money, what do they want? Well, they want power. How far does power go? Well, it's never ending. The more power they can get, the more they'll take until they become the hegemon of the world. This is their the thing that they screw themselves off to, the idea. So why don't we just discard that and people like that? Look, power hungry is also not the point. But of course, power sharing only with people that are legitimate, and that's sort of where the whole problem comes in, where people proclaim, adamantly swear they're legitimate, are trained sophistically to do that just to usurp the position, and then they flip on the mandate. See, that's a political crime. That's another thing that can be written into the law. And then you have to think what the appropriate punishment for that would be. Essentially, screwing over everyone in the country. Like, ooh, that's a little bit more than a fender bender on a toot. Isn't it? But they don't seem to think so. These people are so far up their dairy airs that they think they can do no wrong, or that they have done no wrong. I mean, the level of delusionality is astronomical at this point. But what keeps them there? Well, violence and intimidation, schemerism, psychopathy, narcissism, what else? Oh, sadism, yeah, let's not forget. Their dirty little not so open secret Their policies are sadistic because that's what they are. Oh, we didn't start off that way. Well, you ended up that way. The fruit of your tree is sadism. So Socrates isn't going to help you, no matter how many little games you play around that. You led to a regime where the rents were increased 5 times and the death by despair index shot through the ceiling. So nobody cares about your rationalizations and explanations for that. You're guilty. The case is open, the case is now shut. So cuff them. And book them. And on to the next case. So I think it should be understood that there should be no statute of limitations on political operatives. I think the level, the amount of mayhem that these people are directly responsible for, especially as criminally negligent, spineless sadists, are far beyond any value that they could have possibly produced in their entire lives or could possibly produce to pay back or pay for the damages that they caused. Even if that means taking the spot away from someone who would have just prevented that type of mayhem, even just 10% would have prevented 10% would have been so much better. But they didn't let that happen. Their friends did. And so they're going to take the rap. And their friends too. Don't forget their friends. This is how Eastern Europe was put down the shitter, and Russia too. They didn't take care of the friend factors. People that had committed crimes be all comprehension, just, oh, well, we got a new government here, so I guess everything's okay. Not really, no. People doing that level of crime, they all need to see time. And the net needs to be thrown far, and it needs to be a fine mesh. No loopholes, no nothing. Does that frighten you? Well, if it does, it should. Don't get involved in politics if you're going to screw over the people you represent or their culture or their values or anything else. I would never in a billion years come up with such an idea or go to a country and do that. And neither would any other decent person. So you commit the crime, you're going to do the time. It's just a question of definition right now. You got too many comfortable slugs that think, well, we got our patsy here. No matter what happens, we're cool. I don't think so. I think that new government needs to make a provision. Yeah, the slugs are part and parcel of the process. In fact, look to the slugs first, then the patsy last. All these donations. Where the hell did these donations come? 100 million donations after a failed debate. Those people. Hello? Oh, hi. Did you send $100 million to a dud back in 2023? Oh, yes, I did. Well, what are you doing now? Well, I'm playing my skin flute in the Bahamas or something. Oh, must have been pretty profitable for you. Something like that. I'm gonna need something like Interpol for people like that. A new Interpol, not, see, all institutions are failed or close to it. But the original idea of Interpol was very good. That people who thought they could commit crimes in certain countries and then just flee, like from one to the next, and do that with their ill-gotten gains, that they shut down a bunch of people from doing that. So people who rip off their countries and are deemed to be part of one of those rackets, they should not feel safe with whatever it is that they have. They certainly didn't help anyone feel safe in their country while they were destroying it. So we live in just stupefying times that are really beyond all comprehension at this point. And it is intentional, it is organized, and yeah, we got a class dimension to it, unfortunately. We got the Benedict Arnold, globalist kind of cool people that like to take over good parts of our infrastructure that are still left over and then to subvert that. So I'm sure many people were surprised with Benedict Arnold. Like, how could this happen? Like, it took him a few days to come out of the daze. And so we in the West, we need to collectively do that. Like, come out of this daze that we have been bamboozled as bamboozledly as we have. But we have. The facts speak for themselves. Not their propaganda, mind you. The facts. This happened while they were sitting on their hands in a spineless, sadist kind of way for over the period of 10 years. And they think they're going to skate. They're not going to skate through the history books. Like, see, these people are so deranged. It's like a combination of like the Qing dynasty and Pol Potist or something. That they think they're going to be able to rewrite history when they take over everything and airbrush themselves, North Korea. That's what they're sort of looking to pull off. But of course, to do that, they got to get rid of the people that don't see it that way, so that we get to experience that as well. I mean, if you're an honest, kind of decent person, yeah, they don't like you. You're in danger. They are dangerous. Don't smoke outside, a factory with a bunch of materials in it that can burn, right? So don't hang out with people that have these kinds of corny 1917 kind of ideas that have just so evolved over time into this sort of psych lab army kind of usurpation and sadism that we can call globism. So that was the other thing I was thinking about. I said, fifth column. I think column isn't enough. It's too innocuous. It's like the 5th Division. You should think of them as military operatives, PMCs. 5th Divisionists out there every day taking orders, doing jumping jacks to wreck your country for globist interests that are diametrical to your own interests, while they play pretend that they're on your side. Isn't that what Benedict Arnold was up all about too? Although in his case it's sort of tragic because, see, his egotism was his downfall. But he wasn't always a POS. These people coming out of these torpedo factories, they were POSs from the beginning, which is why they were recruited and developed in the first place. So it's not one of these surprises like Benedict Arnold, the hero, goes from the hero to the zero. They never had that first part to begin with. But as long as people are dealing, floating on pretenses and drinking the Kool-Aid, they will continue to rob and degrade and subvert the country. So But let's not forget we have a new first and second estate. In France now, it's just undeclared. You're just supposed to believe them because they're so cool and intelligent and educated and so hysterically emotionally wrong on all of the issues, including men and women. A man can be a woman. Of course. You want to have those conversations ad nauseum? I don't think so. These people are the cultural equivalent of gonorrhea. Specifically designed to be that, by the way. But no, they're very good people with golden hearts. It's just buried so deep down in a pile of manure you can't ever find it. But don't call them bad names because they'll cry. Because they're, very fragile on all the issues. So stop taking them at face value. Do not become like them. See what they do and do the opposite. How they act, be the opposite of that. That's probably a good indicator. Now, on the other hand, becoming the crazy, tyrannical person, if that is needed, it should only be considered an interim situation to reestablish a zero starting point. But after that, it's back to civil liberties and the pursuit of happiness as it was intended to be. Now, some people, like these paranoid criminals, he's just saying that, don't believe him. But guess they're doing that because that's what they are. So we're not ever going to get past them and change into something new if we don't embrace the transformative process, which means throwing away their junk and starting over. How they used to do things, we don't do it that way anymore. Just like that. They were all wearing bell bottoms and Crocs, and were dyeing their hair weird colors and putting stuff up. But we don't do that anymore. So, see, our stuff, it looks fantastic. It works fantastic. And there's fantastic people doing it. So, that's not where we are now. And we're not going back to there. And we don't take people at face value that are aligned with 1917ists. Ideologically, from lineage, anything stemming from that. Any books, literary criticisms, art movements, you name it, cooking classes. From yesterday to today, all that's defunct. That bad dream gets canceled. And the people that were in on it, too. And their followers and supporters. Oh, but you would be then against the working class. No, they're against the working class now. Just imagine that. These are the step and fetchits of rent seekers. These are the animal farmists. Both sides of the aisle ists. Did I write that book? No. I just read it. It was from a long time ago. Does that mean we're doomed to have a system like that? I don't see it that way. Why should you see it that way? And the other problem is these lunatics, it's really their way or the highway. They make it like that. So guess who should be hitting the highway? It's not you if you're a decent person, it's them. So they make some ultimatums like that they can end up blowing up in their faces real quick, and let that process happen because they deserve it. And they deserve it not because I'm saying that, no. Because of the facts. right? The statistics, that's what says so. Now, do I like being an adversarial person? Do I like criticizing people? Do I like living in socioeconomic and political terroristic times? Do I like being in a cultural war? Well, the answer to all of those questions is no. And on top of that, I don't consider myself a part of any of that noise. Because I'm not. Just one voice in the wilderness, that's it. Other people see it differently, that's their karma. I am not getting messed up with messed up people, and I'm not going to lie about the truth. They don't like that, well, F them. You don't like it? You don't like that your entire program gets an F minus? Well, F you. You stink. Everything about you stinks. Won't even take criticism. Kind of stink. Hey, buddy, change that diaper. It's full. No, I'm not doing that. F you. You know, that type of person, you can't help people like that. It's a big, big tragedy that their whole programs got started in the first place. And it's even a worse tragedy that they were tolerated by a bunch of stooges and complicit criminals. But here we are. This is the mess. This is the moonscape that we have that's looking to get worse. Should look at Pakistan a little bit closer, because that's sort of how a 95-5 world will look if they are able to continue their vandalistic escapades. So yeah, thinking people, you need to start organizing, keeping an eye out for their fakers, because they're adopting the left has no problem with snitches and agents and all that. So anybody even close to funky, you need to put a lot of boundaries and barriers and protect yourself. Do not take any of these post-moronistic creatures at face value. And screw-ups, that's, we're dealing at sort of an existential level at this point, so not everyone needs to be in politics. Just the best amongst you. And so the standards are extraordinarily high. Now, on the other hand, you might have been browbeaten to think that you're not good enough to get into politics. You might be exactly the type of person that should be in politics. Whereas these imbecilic, narcissistic, schemerous, psychopathic, and sadistic kinds of people shouldn't go into politics at all. Like, they should be the people somewhere else, but not there. But they don't see it that way. See, so that's why it takes that third party, like an intelligentsia that hasn't been brain dunked in the dip tank kind of intelligentsia, so that people can discern the one kind of person from the other. And I get it, we don't have that now, but we need to start in developing that infrastructure as well, because all of the infrastructure that is working has been usurped by these horrendous forces of destruction, decay, corrosion, and insanity. See, when a bunch of greedy people just are taking things, it's really a good thing when they're stopped. And the system they created that. And the consequences be damned. Well, yeah, guess what comes around that goes around? Now, they're playing a delaying action. How long can they continue the charade, The charade. 10 years of hybrid war with no pushbacks. Pretty terrible. But they're looking to make it 20 years if you let them, so don't.